Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for this exciting emotional recovery conference online today. There have been so many disasters in our area, in our nation, over the past few months, from flooding to hurricanes to fires to shootings, that a lot of times our emotional needs get pushed to the side and not taken care of. But they are just as essential as making sure we have water and food. And that's something that I'm very, very passionate about, is having that emotional balance and having tools and using them to help us have peace within our emotional self. Because as our emotions are at peace, then guess what? Our physical body can be at peace as well. Because our emotions have a physical effect on our body. And so let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Nicole Vincent, and I'm a holistic empowerment coach. And I am our host and moderator for today for this wonderful conference with many experts in different areas to help us get new tools in our tool belts to help ourselves get better and heal emotionally. Now, this is something that came to me. I was driving down the road and I felt very inspired that I needed to reach out to my network and find the people that I knew or the people that they knew who would be interested in sharing emotional tools, who would be interested in helping our nation and our people heal emotionally. And the response was huge. It was phenomenal. And I knew that what we were doing was needed. And it was very much good timing. And so today, the way that it's going to work is we will have our different experts come up about every 45 minutes talking on different topics that they are experts in and that they feel passionately about. And so we would love for you to join us the whole day, but we understand that Saturdays are crazy. Actually, every day is crazy, but everyone's schedule is a little crazy. So if you need to pop in and out as needed, you can. And you can use this app on your smartphone or your computer. So you can view it from both devices and take us with you as you're running your errands throughout the day if you can. These will be recorded, and those recordings will be emailed out to the email address that you provided at registration for this webinar. So, be aware of that. Now, what we're going to be talking about today might be a little bit different than what you're used to. We might be using new terms that you're not used to, such as energy. And what that is everything in this universe is made of energy. That's a physics 101. And so everything that is energetically connected. And so we're going to be introducing some different ideas and concepts that you may have never thought of before, maybe have never even heard of. And I encourage you to keep an open mind. Everything you might hear today might not be singing your song, but there might be one or two nuggets in there that are exactly what your soul was searching for. So be open-minded to that and really pay attention to how you're feeling. If you feel like, oh, I really need to connect with this person, I think that they have some answers. They have the next few steps on my personal journey. Make sure you're taking note of that person and you're reaching out to them. Contact information for everybody will be provided. But keep an open mind. There might be a few things that might be said, might be shared that don't resonate with you, and that's okay. Just kind of put them on a shelf and just say, you know what, that's not for me, but it might be for somebody else. So keep an open mind and an open heart to what is being shared today, because everybody's at a different place on their journey, including you and me and everybody presenting here. We are here just to share ideas, share different tools, and help you figure out that next step to help you heal emotionally. Because as we go through these disasters, as we go through different traumas in our life, our body there's an effect. There's chemical reactions that happen when we experience emotion. Think about driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you're already in a rush. You're already running late. And you get really angry and your face gets red and hot. And you feel your blood pressure rise and your heart starts racing. That is a physical effect from that anger. And so what happens when we experience emotions, we have a physical effect. And so if maybe we think that anger is not an okay emotion for us to have. And so every time we experience anger, we kind of shove it down and pretend it's not there. Well, what can happen over time is if we keep doing that, we keep pretending, oh, I'm not angry. I'm speaking from personal experience here. Then what can happen is things can happen in your body like gallstones or kidney stones. And that's what happens when we don't process and release emotion. And there are so many amazing experts that are going to give you lots of different ideas today on how to deal and process those emotions, how to have tools to help deal with them in a healthy way that can help your body release them and heal. Because we've all had difficult experiences in our life. We've all had traumatic experiences. And we've all gone through hard trials, right? So we're going to have these emotions and we need to know how to deal with them. And a lot of things in our society, we're not taught how to deal with these emotions. As a child, you might have been told, suck it up, don't cry about that. Or, shut up, your feelings don't matter. Or you're just a crybaby, or you're just over emotional. Now, those voices can linger in our head for a long time, can't they? So we're going to help teach you and how to be mindful, how to change those thought patterns so that you can validate your emotions, so you can get through grief, you can get through loss, you can get through trauma in a healthy way, and you can be standing stronger at the end of it all. So we're so excited to share our tools and our toolboxes with you and our knowledge with you. We are not the end all and be all of our topics. We are all students. We are all learning. So please take what we share with you and continue your journey of learning if something really resonates with you. So we're going to go ahead and start off our webinar today. Let me pull up my screen really quick. And our first speaker today is the wonderful Christi Turley Diamond. She is also known as the Healing Coach, and she has been in the healing arts for 13 years. She is incredibly intuitive. She has been helping people to heal their spirit wounds through energy work. She specializes in grief and loss as a certified grief recovery specialist. She has helped thousands find healing and has clients all over the world as she can work remotely. And you will see that with our different experts that we can work remotely, because guess what? With energy, everything is energetically connected. So it doesn't matter if you're right next to them or if they're on the other side of the world. It's remarkable. And I still don't understand it 100%, but I've seen it work and I know that it does. So Christi loves to speak to audiences across the country on a variety of topics. She's also the creator of the Aroma Heal Emotional Mindfulness card deck and the author of Aroma Heal books 1 and 2. She's an essential oil guru, and when it comes to emotion, she knows exactly what oils will suit your body. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Christi. Hold on, let's get her. There we go. Awesome. Christi, take it away.
Thanks, Nicole. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to do this. I just love that so many healers are willing to gather together to do this. And I'm excited to see all the information being put out today to help each of you with tools that might help you right now and this time of where we're having actually lots of natural disasters. It seems like every week something else is coming up. So I am excited to be joining you and doing this. I wanted to talk a little bit about, here we go. Okay. Actually, I have a little PowerPoint presentation I'm going to put on. So let's see if I can do this right. No matter how many times you do this, it seems like, still you can have a glitch here and there, but.
There you go.
Got it. All right. So here we go. All right. So my topic today is, what can I do for me 5 Steps to Emotional Healing and Dealing with Loss and Trauma. That's kind of a mouthful, but I wanted to see what it was, just from my knowledge and information of what I've gained in my experience, that I could share with each of you today that might be helpful for you. And I'm going to share some tips and ideas that I've used in my practice for several years, and helping people work through things. And I love, Nicole, how you talked about how, we can have these emotions and then they can kind of get trapped within us, and maybe we have been told to just push them down or get over it, right? What does get over it mean? I don't feel like you really get over things, but you can work through things. So today I'm going to talk about what are some things that you can do for yourself as you work through this, as you work through loss and trauma. And to start off with, I just wanted to actually give you just a little background on myself as to why I'm even qualified to even talk about this. So some of my background is I have a bachelor degree in psychology, and then I went on to get my master's in instructional design and education. I've also been certified in grief recovery. I've been in the healing arts for 13 years, a life coach, and honestly, one of the biggest parts of my journey is when I started working for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I did that for 6 years, and I saw how trauma affected people immediately. Like, it was like one day we're going along in life, and then the very next, it's like it shifts completely overnight, like to where your whole world is turned upside down. And so I worked with victim services, and I was over 6 counties, and I ran support groups. And I saw how people were affected with loss and grief and trauma, sudden trauma. And it was really, really tragic things that happened. And that's where I kind of felt like I got my niche of working with people who were kind of in crisis, and knowing what to do, and knowing that affects our body so much. It affects our body physically, it affects our emotions, and just gained so much insight and experience in that, which actually led to the being certified in grief recovery. It helped, in the work in the healing arts, and really just listening to people and helping them feel heard. So I went on to write a couple of books later on, as I actually learned, integrating some natural essential oils into my practice and doing energy healing and energy work, which, like Nicole said, might be a new term for you, into my practice, and recognizing that the combination of several things actually sped up the healing process for people. And so I love sharing that with people. And last year I got to travel the country for a whole year teaching that. And I love to teach. I love to empower people in their own healing. So I'm excited to share this with you today. So what is loss? When you think about loss, what comes to mind? Usually what comes to mind is death, right? People are like, oh, that's death. But you know what? Loss is death, but it's so many things. We could have loss of job, loss of home, loss of safety. There's so many things that we experience throughout life that we can put in the category of loss. And many of us actually don't know how to deal with loss. We're taught how to gain things. We're taught how to gain a house, right? Buy a house, get a car, but we're not really ever taught how to lose things. I mean, if you think about it, we're not really taught how do we deal with loss when something goes out of our life. And many times when loss happens, there's so much emotion that comes up inside, and we feel so much pain that we want to push it down. And I used to, when I worked with my clients at M.Ed, it was like, I kind of likened it to this. Say, for instance, that you get a gash on your leg, right, and it's bleeding, and you don't take care of it. You just keep putting Novocaine on it just to numb it, to be able to just keep going, right? Just keep going. Let's put the Novocaine on. Let's numb it. And pretty soon that gash turns into like an infection. and it gets worse and worse and worse, and it can turn into like gangrene, and like you have this whole infection in your leg, and then you have to have your leg amputated because you never took care of it. And I know that's kind of a gory description, but that's what happens when we don't deal with our emotions, when we don't process our emotions and work through them, and we keep suppressing them. I guarantee, absolutely guarantee, that it will later on affect you so much worse. If we don't deal with it, it's kind of that, like that volcano that erupts. So stopping to learn to deal with your emotions and working through things can be so powerful in your healing process. And the sooner, the better is what I say, but I don't want you to feel like you have to rush your healing, okay? That's not what I'm trying to get to. It's just make sure that as emotions come up, you're able to deal with them. So I'm going to share some tips today on what you can do for yourself in your own emotional healing when you've dealt with disaster. You know, these natural disasters, what are some of the losses people are dealing with? They're dealing with loss of homes, loss of belongings, loss of even community. People feel, you know, very separated from each other. I've also seen people come in and create community because of it. But there's lots of losses that you can experience. Some people have lost loved ones in these natural disasters. So I'm just going to give you some pointers and tips that might help you work through this. So here's some normal emotional responses to traumatic events when we have trauma happen in our life. We can go through all these kinds of emotions: shock and disbelief, which is kind of, you know, having a hard time accepting what's happened, right? Like you're in this place of like, really, did this happen? This feels kind of surreal. And a numbness can set in with that. Fear that the same thing will happen again, or that you'll lose control or break down. Sadness, again, with loss of loved ones that have been affected by these disasters. A feeling of helplessness is really, really common, because when we've lived a life of, you know, kind of predictability of knowing we have this or that, and all of a sudden that's taken away, you do feel very vulnerable and very helpless. Guilt. Some people have survivor's guilt when someone else has been harmed or has passed on. Things, you know, we can sit in guilt forever. The woulda, shoulda, couldas can totally kill us. So that's a huge part of it, is always, you know, that cycle we get into of the guilt. What if I had done this? What if I had thought of this? And we can't get into that trap because we can get stuck there for a really long time. Anger is another emotion. You may be angry at God or others you feel are responsible for this. That's a natural reaction to traumatic events. Shame, especially over feelings or fears you can't control. And then relief. You might even feel relief in this. You may feel relieved that the worst is over, and even hopeful that your life will return to normal. So if you're feeling some of these emotions and this is going on with you, just know that it's normal, and it could be a total roller coaster ride. One day you could feel the fear, the next day it's the guilt, and you can go back and forth among these emotions. And it really is a roller coaster ride. So, so just know that it's natural, especially when disaster happens, the physiological responses that happen in the body very quickly, going into shock and disbelief. That's a very normal part of it. So just recognize that probably all the emotions you've been feeling is actually a really natural part of your response to the traumatic events that have been happening. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the brain today, because it's really important to how we process information and our response to trauma. So I'm going to read this real quick. Trauma appears to increase activity in the amygdala. Now the amygdala, if you can see, I can use my little pointer here. Here's the amygdala right here, the green part of this picture. And that is actually the powerhouse of our emotions. It's where we actually process a lot of our emotions, is in the amygdala. And there's actually two parts to the amygdala that have very significant components to it depending on what emotions we're feeling. And it really, this region of the brain helps us process emotions and is linked to fear responses. So when we have these natural disasters come up, there's a lot of fear that can well up inside of us. And this is where our brain processes all those emotions going on, okay? There's also the hippocampus, which is right behind the amygdala, as you see here, this kind of yellow part. And that is the most significant neurological impact of trauma, is where it's seen in the hippocampus. And it's responsible for the memory functions. So when we have a memory and later on there's a response, say for instance, you've been through the natural disaster, here's the flooding happening, and so you have a memory of that kind of going on alert, your body going on alert. You're watching TV later on, weeks later, and you hear another alert about a flood coming in, and it's like the memory goes back to you having experienced that in the first place, and you can actually have a reaction to it, right? So it's that whole thing of these emotions coming up. And this is two parts that work together in the brain when we're talking about the emotional reaction to circumstances like trauma and these disasters happening. So that's important to recognize, that when you're talking about memories and you have emotions attached to memories, what happens is, here's the thing, is we get a thought that then attaches to a feeling, okay? And then those combined together create a belief. And so in us, we can start to create these beliefs around fear, around anger, things like that. And so we're trying to deal with, how can we deal with those feelings and emotions before they become a belief in us, to where later on it can turn into PTSD and things like that, to where we're having to try to undo beliefs we created out of fear, if that makes sense. So that's why I talk a little bit about the amygdala and the hippocampus today. It's just how important it is to recognize that if we can get to those two and start to kind of address the emotions coming up in that part of our brain, then we're all the better for it. For instance, probably about 3 years ago, I was actually held at gunpoint, and I had a gun pointed to my head and a gun pointed to my side. And in that moment, I almost felt like I left my body. It was such a surreal experience. Like, I went into the whole shock, didn't believe it was happening. And it actually, it was. Right after that experience, when I literally thought, wow, my life could be over here in just, a few seconds, I immediately started to process the emotions that came up from that. And that is an experience that you can easily get PTSD from, right? And I went into doing energy work with a friend of mine who actually experienced it with me. We were both in the car as this happened. And we were able to release a lot of the emotions that came up for it, to where they did not become trapped within us to then later on affect us physically. Because I do believe that emotions have a lot to do with our physical symptoms. It's emotions that are trapped within us that weren't fully processed. So to be able to process them quickly and work through them can really be key to your healing, so that you don't have lasting effects of this trauma. And so I'm going to get back to that in a little while. So let's talk a little bit. We talked about loss and stuff, and I want you to recognize that when you're grieving losses, and again, loss can be so many different things. I mean, loss of home is pretty traumatic. That's your safe haven, right? So losing your home, losing your sense of safety can be really traumatic. And so when we go into grief, we've got to actually allow ourselves to grieve and not put a time frame on it. One of the big things when I worked with people working, with Mothers Against Drunk Driving was so many people on the outside of the situation expected the person on the inside of the situation who was grieving the loss of a loved one that, at this point they should be here. They should they should be over this at this point. They would kind of put a time frame on. And we have to be comfortable with crying and releasing our grief. A lot of times when we're trying to comfort others and we want them to stop crying, it's really for our own discomfort and not theirs. So let me tell you something, to be there for someone who's going through grief and allowing them their grief is really crucial in our relationships, is allowing people to grieve and not rushing them through it. And so don't rush yourself through it. Don't think, oh, I should already be over this. I should already have worked through this. Just allow the emotions to come up when they need to. And you know what? It'll come up at different times. It'll come up when you're in the grocery store and you hear a song, overhead, and something will be, will touch a nerve within you, and then you just feel like you have to cry. So go to your car and just cry, but don't keep pushing the emotions down. That's going to be the key factor here. One of the big, really important things that was really pivotal, that is very pivotal when I work with clients dealing with grief and loss, is we need to take inventory of our losses. Sometimes we can't even really put our finger on what it is that we're grieving, why we feel so sad, why we feel so hurt. So literally, I want you to think about sitting down and writing a list of everything you've lost in this disaster. What did you lose? Did you, did you lose your home? Did you lose your furniture? Did you lose your sense of safety? But literally, making a list and acknowledging our losses helps us to kind of process what those losses are, rather than just it all randomly, coming out whenever. So I would highly, highly suggest that when you go through any loss in your life, any loss that you're experiencing, whether it's through disaster, whether it's divorce, whether it's death, literally take an inventory of your losses. And I mean everything. And this isn't to put yourself in the place of victim mode. Look at everything I've lost. It's really just an acknowledgement. It's okay to acknowledge your losses. For instance, it could even be, just as an example, say someone went through a divorce, right? And they lost a partner, right? So someone to go through life with. It's a loss of dreams together. I would even go down to the fact that maybe it's a wife taking an inventory of her losses, the loss of someone taking out the garbage, the loss of someone doing the lawn work. I mean, it's just it's a whole transition. Loss is all about transition. It's going from how life used to be to how life now is. So when you acknowledge that, you're going to help yourself work through the losses. Really, really valuable to do that. So that's one tip I would give you. Okay, so I talked about the amygdala, which is the powerhouse of the emotions. And one tip I give people is, I have studied essential oils a lot. In fact, I wrote 2 books on them. And when you look at the amygdala, the quickest way to get to the amygdala is actually through the nasal cavity. So one thing you can do to kind of calm down those little receptors that are firing off all these emotions is to literally breathe in aromas that can be comforting and healing for you. And so another tip I would give you is to use some essential oils. They are, I can't even tell you how powerful these oils can be in helping you calm down those receptors when it's just like you're so full of emotion. And different notes and different oils have beautiful properties for healing and calming. Excuse me. I don't know why I have a frog in my throat this morning, but anyway, so using essential oils and diffusing them can really be powerful. Again, getting to the amygdala, the quickest way to get there is through the nasal cavity. So you can literally put a drop in your hands, breathe it in, or use a cool mist diffuser to do the essential oils. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients and seen how certain oils work with certain aspects. One of those, rosemary, is the oil of transition. So it's really a good oil when you're going through transition and changes in life, to diffuse that, to use rosemary. Basil is really good for overwhelm. Sometimes when we're so overwhelmed with emotion, it's good to also use the essential oil. So basil is a really, really good oil for that. I use the doTERRA essential oils, and they have a blend called Console. I had a mom who her son was having a really, really hard time with transitioning. His parents were divorcing, and he was having a really hard time letting go of sleeping in mom's bed because he was just ridden with fear, anxiety. And so she started to diffuse Console blend at night, which is really a comforting blend. It has a combination of different oils in it. So helpful for him. He actually started to transition to be able to go into his own bed and let go of that. So at night, diffusing oils for sleep and relaxation, to be able to let go of the anxiety and the fears that are coming up during the day, can be really powerful. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. So there's a lot of oils that are really powerful in doing that. I also, from my card deck, I pulled basil and rosemary just so I could read. And so the emotional aspects it releases on basil is overwhelm, exhaustion, and feeling depleted. When you've gone through, disaster like this, those for me are emotions I would totally feel are pretty present, and it instills renewal, strength, and balance. It creates a new energy and lease on life after feeling overwhelmed or deep exhaustion. So on the card, I put a centering thought, and so this is something you can do to relax and meditate. Is I let go and release the patterns of the past. Every day in every way, I am balanced and renewed. So that's a centering thought you can use with the basil when you're doing meditation. And then there's an affirmation, which is different from an affirmation. It's actually a question, so that you're pulling in the subconscious mind to create change in thought. So it's, why is it so easy for me to create healthier ways of coping? I love that. So you actually ask yourself that question throughout the day using that basil oil. Why is it so easy for me to create healthier ways of coping? And then it has the chakras on the card. So you could put it on your throat, crown, or heart chakra. Basil's really good for balancing that. Excuse me. Then rosemary, I'm going to read through that card really quick. The emotional aspects it releases is grief, difficulty with transition, and change. Again, it's the oil of transition and change. It instills adaptability, clarity, and openness to new possibilities. That's when we're in that place of change and transition, opening our heart to new possibilities can be really powerful for us. It creates easier transition through difficult changes and phases in life, and creates hope for the future. The centering thought for rosemary is, I can handle transition, I honor my grief, and release it to step into joy, love, and fulfillment. And grief really is a part of life, right? It is. I mean, as much as we try to avoid it, for some reason, we as human beings don't feel like we're supposed to experience pain. And people would ask me often, how do I get through this? How do I get through this thing? What is the fastest way for me to get through this? I just want to get, through the heartache and pain. And I would actually tell them, walking through it, walk through the pain. That is the quickest way to get there. And it's true. The more we avoid, the longer the process. When we walk through it, it actually is a quicker place to getting on the other side. All right, so the affirmation, again, is a question mark. When we're creating new beliefs within us, engaging the subconscious mind is really important and powerful. So the affirmation is, why is it so easy for me to handle transition and feel joy? And then the chakra chakras are energy systems in our body. And so this is third eye, which is like the middle of the forehead, and then the heart. So those are two really good oils. There's lots and lots of different oils, but that's just another tip I would give you, is use essential oils again, to get to the amygdala very quickly, breathing in those oils can really calm the system. Another tip I would give you, this is so interesting. We tend to be scared, especially men, of feeling our emotions for some reason. We've been conditioned to, don't be emotional. Don't feel your feelings. Like we feel threatened by people feeling their feelings. And honestly, if we give ourselves a moment to actually feel our feelings, then they don't have the power over us to continue to bring up so much emotion within us. And this is a practice I use very, very often, is literally trying to get to the place of, so maybe I'm frustrated, right? And so I'd say, why am I frustrated? And then I would just keep asking myself questions till I really get to the emotion. And maybe it's anger, right? I'm angry because somebody didn't do something they were supposed to do that messed up my plan. So now I'm feeling frustrated. So I get to the core feeling and emotion behind something. And then I will you literally time yourself, because one of the things, one of the biggest fears of people who are going through grief and loss when I work with clients is they fear going to that emotion and never coming back. What if I start crying and I can't ever stop? Right? So there's this fear that they're not going to be able to come back once they go into that emotion. But we can give ourselves, our body, the experience of feeling that emotion so we can process and release it and then move forward. So this is literally what I do. I ask people to fully go into that emotion for a full minute. I mean, absolutely, completely go into that emotion. Say it is anger. So you start the clock for a minute and you go into every part of anger. I'm angry because, this, and I feel this, and you're just like getting everything out that's bottled up inside with that emotion, right? At the end of a minute, you take a deep breath to release it. It really is powerful to move emotion through our body. Again, because when emotions get trapped and are not fully processed, they can affect us physically. I always use this example. Say I'm 7 years old, I go to school and we're playing on the playground and we're going to play kickball, right? So everybody's choosing teams. And say I end up being the last one picked, and I am so humiliated and embarrassed that I am the last person picked for a team. But I don't want anybody to know that I'm feeling this. So that emotion has to go somewhere. Everything is energy. And so every emotion or feeling we have has an energy to it. So it goes inside, and I don't fully process it. It goes inside my body somewhere, right? And then later on, another experience with rejection happens, and it kind of feeds that emotion again. It's not fully processed. I didn't express it or feel it. And it kind of like is like a canker inside the body that then creates dis-ease in the body. And we start to have physical symptoms later on, because we also create, again, where I said there's a feeling that is attached to a thought. So the thought is, I'm not enough, rejection, and the feeling is I feel so completely rejected. I bring those two together, and it goes into the subconscious mind and my belief that I'm not enough and nobody wants me, right? That gets trapped within me and it's not fully processed. And then another experience feeds that, and then pretty soon we have these beliefs within us that fester within our body and then create physical symptoms of ailments within our body. So releasing those is really important. And that's why I'm saying when you feel an emotion, something's coming up, take note of what that is. Allow yourself to feel it for a full minute. Literally go to that place, feel it, then release it and let it go. And it can be a really powerful thing, because then we don't have to hold on to it. We don't have to hold on to that emotion or that feeling, and we can release it and let it go. So whatever emotions or feelings are coming up for you, having experienced this disaster, these, traumatic events, allow yourself to feel them. I can't stress that enough. Now, we don't have to take it out on people. We can literally do this in private, on our own. Just feel the emotion. work through it and release it and let it go and not hang on to it. So it's really important to walk through the pain, walk through the feeling. Okay, so I wrote a book. It's called Aroma Heal 1. There's Aroma Heal 1, Aroma Heal 2, and there's actually some releasing techniques in there. And I actually wanted to take some time to share a couple of these with you guys on here, because I wanted you to experience some releasing in real time as we do this. And I think other practitioners are going to do that throughout the day. So I just hope you guys really take advantage of these wonderful resources from each of these practitioners and healers and experts, and really give yourself some time today to work through some of this by using the techniques that we're all offering. So there's 2 techniques that I'm going to offer today that I want to do actually right now. And what I've done is energy work is working with the energy around us, and it's really working at the spirit level, because that's where, we're able to release things at a deep level and create healing within us. So I wanted to share 2 techniques from this book, and the magical part of it is when you combine it with an essential oil. So here's the thing. Let me actually describe a little bit more about what the essential oils do. So imagine that you spill some paint on the ground, okay, and it dries up, right? And so you try to scrape the paint off, and you're scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing, trying to get that paint off. But if you were to just put water on it and let it sit for a while, the paint would actually slide off, right? That to me is what the essential oils do. Like I said, everything is energy. So every emotion has an energy to it. Our bodies are made of energy. Our emotions are energy. And everything, since everything's made of energy, it also has a frequency to it. So there's actually a frequency to our emotions. The lowest vibration emotion is shame. That is the lowest vibration emotion we could ever hold within us, is shame. Many of us operate on the level of shame, so releasing shame can really be healing for us. So what I tell my clients when I work with them and I'm doing sessions with them is, if we add an essential oil to the work we're doing of releasing, we're actually marrying the 2 together, the energy work and the essential oil. And it's a really powerful thing to combine both in order to release the emotions. So the essential oil, it's kind of like that water on the paint. It's loosening up the emotions ready to be released, and the energy work helps to release them. So those 2 together combined are really powerful in helping you heal quickly. And what I love so much about energy work is I have been through some really traumatic events in my own life, like really, really traumatic events in my own life. And I took the long road to healing, where it took years to process and work through, and then I found what I call the efficient way, which I feel like is energy work, where I was blown away with how quickly things were processed without having to relive the trauma or the drama. And so that's what I do with my clients in a session, is we work through things, we get to the subconscious mind, we get to some beliefs, we get to some of those emotions that have been trapped within them, and we're able to release them like within an hour's time. And it's like lifetime, years they've held on to this, right? But you can release it within an hour. So I love teaching this because I know what it did in my own life. Like I said, I've been through some traumatic experiences. I took the long road to healing, and I've also taken the quicker, more efficient. And I will take that any day over the years and years of trying to work through, do a lot of talk therapy and things like that. So I love teaching it because, and that's why we put it in the book, is so that people had it in their own hands to be able to use it for themselves, in their families, in their homes. This is where I can totally get emotional, is I know that we have patterns passed on to us generationally, how we deal with loss, how we deal with trauma. And if we can release that and the beliefs that have held us back, we can really create new possibilities in our life. So to have a book that has some tools in it that someone can take home and use on their children and themselves, like that is where that's where my heart is, because we have the ability to heal so much within us if we just use the power of the tools given to us to do so. So I totally believe in this. And so the two techniques I'm going to use today that are in Aroma Heal 1, and I'm going to tell you which oils go along with them, are we're going to do short EFT, which if you guys have heard of EFT, I mean, hello, it's very universal. Lots of people have used that. And if you haven't done it before, I'm going to show you how to do it today. I'm going to actually shift it over to where you can see my face, and I can show you where to tap. And what we're doing is tapping on meridians of the body. In fact, I'm going to read this to you so it kind of explains it. This combination of tapping the energy meridians and voicing positive affirmation works to clear the short circuit, the emotional block from your body's bioenergy system, thus restoring your mind and body's balance, which is essential for optimal health and the healing. The beauty about EFT is that it can reprogram your body's reactions to the unavoidable stressors of everyday life, thereby providing a more lasting effect. So we're going to do this technique to where you can literally let go of the stress and anxiety within your body that was caused having to experience these natural disasters and the trauma that came from it. And you can actually start to release it. So it's something really powerful to do. And I'm going to try to see if I can, let's see. Okay. Let me.
Chris, just click stop sharing screen. Do you see it? It's at the top. It should be at the top of your screen.
Let's see. Pause share, but it doesn't say stop share. Okay, stop share. There we go. Got it. Okay. All right. Can everybody see me on screen? So we're going to do short EFT. And so what you're going to do is actually use 2 fingers to tap on certain areas of your body. And so this is short EFT. So we're not going to do all, there's actually a process where you can do tap several meridians in your body, but we're just going to do a few. So it's going to be right here on the inside of your eyebrow, right above. You're going to tap your 2 fingers there. The outside of your eyebrow, you're going to go right below your eye, on your cheekbone, on your chin, and then right here where you have that little concave area in your throat, right here. Okay, so there's just a few places we're tapping. And as we tap, we're actually going to help release some of the anxiety. So I'm going to say, and I just want you to repeat after me when you do it. Okay, so it's just start tapping with your fingers, and literally you're just tapping meridians, even though you don't even have to know where they are. Just right here, right above the inside of your brow, this feeling I feel of having fear within me from these natural disasters no longer serves me, and I release it. So you're tapping these areas, okay, as you say that. This feeling I feel that I am not safe no longer serves me, and I release it. So you're going through emotions that came up within that. This feeling I feel that I'm going to experience another disaster no longer serves me, and I release it. So you're just tapping that. Tap it again. Okay. And then you're going to take a deep breath in. You're going to put your 3 fingers together and then put it on this wrist right here and say peace. And you'll actually feel an energy shift go through you when you do that. Now, a good oil to use for this is melaleuca or tea tree oil and the basil for the overwhelm. So I would actually have people put a drop or 2 in their hands, breathe that in before we start the tapping, and then they would do the tapping. So you actually kind of smell it as you're doing the tapping, and it's going to help release stuff as you're breathing that into the amygdala and then releasing. So let's just practice one more time. This feeling I feel of being overwhelmed from these disasters no longer serves me, and I release it. This feeling I feel of having fear that it's going to happen again no longer serves me, and I release it. And then you're going to do the peace take a deep breath in, put your hand, again, these are meridians on the body right here in your wrist, and then just feel the peace go throughout your body. So when you're feeling anxiety, you can say that and do that to yourself wherever you are. It's a really, really helpful tool called short EFT. Okay. The next one I want to do is, it's actually a visualization, because the realization of who we are is so important when we're going through something like this. Let me see, I'm going to try to share the screen again. Okay. Here we go. Okay. The next one is called letting go of labels. And this one is really important in letting go of everything we think identifies us. Many times we do identify ourselves through labels. For instance, I can say, hi, my name's Christi, and I've been divorced, and I've just put a label on me. But listen to the energy of, hi, my name is Christi, and I've experienced divorce, right? Totally different energy with it. So let's let go of the labels we put on ourselves and recognize who we truly are when we let go of everything around us that we think identifies us. And that's part of the thing. Part of the things we've lost are also things that we think identify us when we've gone through a disaster like this. So I want everybody to just close your eyes and just relax. And the oil I would use for this would be bergamot, which is the oil of empowerment, okay, of confidence, self-confidence, self-acceptance. And again, you would put the oil on your hands, breathe that in, and relax, and just close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that you're lying in a beautiful pasture, grass, sunny outside. You're laying on a blanket, and there's a big black trash bag next to you. And I want you to think about every single label you've ever been identified with, whether it's mother, daughter, husband, son, teacher, every profession, healer, student, any labels you've had with experiences, any nicknames anybody ever called you. I want you to put those all into this big black trash bag. Every single one. Any names you were called that were derogatory? Any nicknames? Any titles you've had at work? Degrees you've earned? Awards? Distinctions? Every single one of those, I want you to put them into the bag. Every single one. Now I want you to think about anything material that you feel you've identified that has made you who you are. Money, your house, your cars, a boat, anything that you own or did own, I want you to put that into the black bag. Every single part of it, everything. I want you to imagine walking into your closet. What clothes have identified you, labeled you as important, unimportant, fat, skinny, any of those labels, any labels you put upon your physical body. Every single thing that you can think of that has identified you, any role you've ever played in life, put it into the black bag. Can we mute everyone? Let's see. Put every single thing into that bag, every material thing, every title, all your money. And now I even want you to put your name into that bag. the name you were given. Until every single part of you that you have found identified you is in that big black bag. Now I want you to imagine that there's a zipper. You're in your body, and there's a zipper at the top of your body, and you can literally unzip yourself, unzip your body from you. And I want you to completely unzip your body from you, step out of it, and put your body into that bag as well. And then I want you to tie up that bag in a big knot. You're going to look out into the sky, into the universe, and you're going to see a big black hole, and you're going to kick it into that big black hole to just completely release it. It's going to swallow it up, and it's gone. Everything, every single thing you've ever identified yourself with is gone, even your body. And right now in that moment, I want you to feel, who are you without all those things? Ask yourself that question, who am I? Feel the freedom of letting go of every single thing that you've identified yourself with. What are you doing? What does it feel like to let go of all of that? Look at your spirit and see who you truly are, without being weighed down with all the things you thought were you. And just recognize that you, as a spirit being, still have so much value and worth. You've had it all along. To this day, you still have it. And literally ask yourself, who am I without all those things? See what answer comes up for you. Take a deep breath in. Feel the freedom. And open your eyes. I love doing that experience because when we look at our losses, and sometimes there are things that we think are part of us, or, some things are just things. And when we've identified ourselves with things, then we've lost who we truly are. But it's also this recognition of that even when we've lost things, we're still incredible, amazing beings, spiritual beings, here having a human experience. And I call this Earth School. And sometimes in Earth School, we have some really hard subjects, like when disaster hits us, when trauma comes in. And it's like, who are we through those experiences? You're still this incredible spiritual being. So that's kind of the message I wanted to leave with you today, is to just remember who you are. Remember that you can still experience your emotions and still come out the other side knowing that you're this incredible spiritual being having this human experience. And just be gentle with yourself through this whole process. When you need to let go again, I would do that process again, or use the short EFT. There's so many tools at your fingertips that you can use for yourself. And I just hope that you feel a little empowered today with what I was able to share with you. I could literally talk about this all day. But I just want you to know that you matter. Your emotions matter. It's okay to feel them. Give yourself some time to work through this. But always, always recognize how powerful you are as a spiritual being here on earth.
Thank you so much, Christi. That was powerful. That was some really good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Nicole. I love doing this. Did you Did we want to answer any questions, or do we need to move on?
I think the main question was, where were the cards? And those are available on your website, correct?
Oh, yes, they are. They're available on my website. They're the emotional mindfulness cards.
Yeah, awesome. And the techniques that she shared are in her books as well. So those are available on your website as well also, right?
Yes. Yes, they are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christi.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me, and good luck to each of you and your journeys and all you're doing. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.